The Design Review Board, number 1, public meeting of January 31st, 2013, called to order. Please refrain from talking amongst yourselves during the meeting. Please turn off or put on vibrate all electronic devices. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. Anyone who wishes to speak, including applicants, is asked to completely fill out one of the speaker cards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff. You will be called to present a case or speak on any specific item as desired. Anyone who wishes to be re-noticed about a project must completely fill out one of the postcards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff to receive notice of subsequent meetings. Current DRB agendas are available by visiting our website at www.ci.glendale.ca.us. Handout describing the procedures of the meeting, possible board decisions, and DRB appeals is available at the table by the front door. Please note that appeals must be filed within 15 calendar days of the DRB decision date. The chairperson may reorder the agenda items at his or her discretion. This will be roll call. Mr. Ellis?
Present.
Mr. Herman?
Present.
Mr. Nsua?
Here.
Ms. Palmer?
Here.
And Chairman Simonian?
Present.
Thank you. The report regarding the posting of the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on January 24th, 2013. We have the oral communication section, which is discussions limited to items not part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes. The board may question speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The board may refer the matter to the proper department section for investigation and report. We have a staff announcement, from my understanding.
Staff announcement. The board may remember that in the past, when you have seen a project, perhaps approving a project that you thought was especially good, you would mention to staff that you thought this was a good project, and we put it in a box called the good files. We still want to do that. We've kind of reinvigorated the program. One of our interns is creating a database of the projects, so that when and the goal of this is so that when we're working with applicants where an architect may be struggling to work in a certain style or develop a second-story addition or something, we can then go to the database quickly, find some examples that we're going to be able to show them, not so much to say this is how we want it to look, but these are the ideas we want you to explore, and this is what the board's approved before, and they liked it, so it helps you. So I just wanted to remind the board that as we move forward, tonight and every other night, if there's something that you're especially taken by, just remember to let us know, because we're only doing it after you give us the direction to put it in the box. So that's all.
Thank you.
We have no items on the consent calendar and no old business. We have one case scheduled for tonight.
Jerry. Very good. Our first case is 1-PDR 1237227. Ms. Toledo, do you want to start us off?
Sure. This is a first-time submittal for final review. The applicant is proposing to construct a new 2-story, 6-unit multifamily building with a 12-car semi-subterranean parking garage. The lot is currently vacant. It's 7,350 square feet. And in terms of its topography, it has a slight sloping terrain at the front, approximately an 8-foot elevation difference compared the street compared to the back of the lot. So it's approximately a 5% slope from the street to the rear property line. And that is pretty much a general characteristic of some of the other lots along the south side of the street. In terms of previous discretionary actions, just keep in mind that on November 29th of last year, the planning hearing officer did approve conditions approve with conditions, waivers and concessions for this project, as it's an affordable housing development. So they do have some approvals which do reflect on the plans before you. One of them was to not comply with the minimum 5-foot interior setback and average on the second floor, and also to not provide common open space. So the project does not have any. And the waiver that was approved was to allow the combined height of the garage and the solid wall above to exceed 6.5 feet above the adjacent ground level. So their proposal ranges anywhere from 3 to 10 feet approximately. And that was all approved by the planning hearing officer.
This is the retaining wall that goes south?
Correct.
Okay.
The project description, as I stated before, it is a new 2-story, 6-unit multifamily residential condominium complex. And as proposed, the project will consist of 3 bedrooms, and that would be 3 bedrooms and 3 2-bedroom residential dwelling units, ranging in size from 1,008 square feet to 1,264 square feet. So the total floor area with all 6 units combined would be 6,898 square feet. The applicant is providing each unit to have its own private open space in the form of a private patio or balcony. And in terms of the neighborhood, the surrounding neighborhood is multifamily residential R1650. In terms of site planning, the applicant has provided in various areas, since he is not providing common open space, he is providing various areas. He has landscaping as part of the project, on site, on the deck, and along the rear property line, basically in areas that is not occupied by a building. And in addition, the total lot coverage is 47%, and where the maximum allowed is 50. In terms of mass and scale, in summary, the 2-story multifamily development does appear to be compatible with the scale of the surrounding buildings, as there are 2-story developments in the area. Adjacent to the building, there's a 1-story, and I believe that's either a duplex or a triplex to the west, and then we have a 2-story development to the east. And what they've done is incorporate various details and combination of stone and stucco and 2 different colors in order to articulate the facades in different ways. In addition to that, as you can see in the rendering, they have some sort of like an arcade type feature along the east elevation, where the direct access to the front entry doors to the units is located, and somewhat of a similar feature but not as extensive would be located on the on the west elevation. So in terms of design and detail, staff did believe that, as proposed, the materials and details and architectural expression of the building does enhance the overall design and is compatible. Staff did have just one comment or condition, and that would be that if not required by the building code, that to replace the railing or guardrail between the driveway and the stairs with a different type of barrier, for example, a planter or a low 18-inch wall in compliance with zoning requirements. And that's, again, if it's not a requirement by building code.
I'm sorry, where is that?
That's actually located, let me just point it out. This would be the driveway, so it would be in this area here between the driveway and the stairs.
Okay. Oh, I see. Yeah, right along here. Okay. In the front setback area.
Correct. If there are any questions for staff, I am available. If not, that concludes my presentation.
And the required guest parking has been provided?
No, it's an affordable housing project, so they comply with the SB 1818, which does not require them to provide guest parking spaces, and it's only 2 residential parking spaces per unit only,
Okay.
in accordance with SB 1818.
I see. Okay.
How long are those restrictions under the affordable housing? You know, is that a lifetime restriction, or is it a,
Well, one of the units is affordable,
that's all it takes, is one affordable unit?
and perhaps the applicant can address that.
Okay.
And that's why it is based on the level of affordability, it's only one, in this case, it's one unit that's would have to be sold to medium-income households.
It'll be low market. at
Correct.
some
And the
percent.
rest would be, the remaining would be at market rate.
I believe it's a 75-year period,
Is it?
I
It's
believe.
okay.
For a larger
I'm not
project,
sure
I
on
know
the
that. I'm not sure if for
time.
a smaller.
Okay.
And so, then, does that no guest parking
30.
apply to just that one non-market rate unit, or it applies to all the units?
I didn't hear the first part of your question, I'm sorry. If the level of affordability only applies to one unit?
More specific, the question was towards the guest parking.
Okay.
And so it's clear with the SB 1818 that the affordable unit will not have to have guest parking requirements. What about the rest
No,
of the
it applies to the whole project.
I see. Even if only one.
That is correct.
Got it. And then as such, it would be 2 parking spots per unit.
2 parking spaces per unit, correct.
So there should be 12 overall.
That is correct, and that's what they are providing.
If it were not an affordable, what would they be required?
It's based on the number of bedrooms. So for 2-bedroom units, it'd be 2 spaces. For 3-bedroom units, there would be 2.5 spaces per unit. And then guest parking would be quarter guest parking per unit.
6. So quarter guests are 6, so that's 1.5 guests. Seemingly right, and then
Always round up,
yeah,
not down.
so 2. Yeah, you're right. So half parking space is a problem, and then it's 2.5
2.5 spaces per 3-bedroom unit.
3-bedroom
And I
units,
believe
and
there's
3. So that's 3, 6, 9. So like it's 11 more. It's almost twice the parking. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
And it's private, it's not state-funded, by the way, in case
Is-
you're interested in knowing.
And is this a for rent or for sale property?
No, it would have to be for sale. Eventually, if, a purchaser wants to rent it later, they can do that, but it has to be for sale. That's part of the level of affordability.
The entire project?
Okay.
Correct,
Okay.
because it's a condominium, based on the level of affordability.
And so it's an affordable project once on the first sale.
You're getting a little technical on me.
Okay. No, but I mean that's the requirement is it has to have an affordable deal, and then right. Okay.
As I understand it, subsequent sales within whatever period, whether it's 75 years or another period, would have to be affordable at whatever the basis.
I think this
that's
is only
determining
good for,
affordable.
I think it's for 30 years. That's what Haran mentioned.
They're, okay. Right. Okay.
Do we have any more questions for staff?
I have one question.
yes, go
I noticed on the site plan, they indicated the garages and the buildings on either side. The unit or the property that's going to have the most impact for the 10-foot high wall is the ones to the south. And I'm just wondering if we have an idea what.
The south and some portions along the west side as well.
That's the driveway side.
Right, correct.
Okay.
I've zoomed in on the property to the south. That's not a great vantage point, but it might help a little.
Oh, I see. The vacant lot is the piece of
This is
property
the
we're talking
vacant, yeah,
about.
the
and
vacant
then-
lot is where we're building, and the greatest height of the retaining wall will be along
Yeah,
the
back,
south
correct.
property line with this,
And then there's another multi-unit behind us.
right, which looks like it may be on a raised podium. I don't know that I see apartment windows down below.
And so that variance that was granted, but if it had not been granted, the height limit would have been 6 feet for that wall.
No more than 6.5 feet,
6.5
correct.
feet overall,
Combined.
combined.
Right.
And that's measured from natural grade or altered grade?
No, natural grade, and the way the code reads is above the adjacent ground level. So we'd have to take into account what the abutting ground level is as well.
I see. Okay. Any other questions for staff? Okay. I do not have any speaker cards. However, I assume Mr. Sarkisian.
I put it on
We have the other white ones.
It's a
but
white one. That's the
regardless,
mailer
you can
card.
come
I
up,
think I
introduce
got you.
yourself, do your presentation, and then you can fill it out afterwards.
Maybe I'm showing my time.
Chair Simonian, members of the commission, Milka, Jay, Brad, and Armin, they're all on first-name basis. The only gentleman I don't know as a first-name basis is Mr. Herman. Anyway, my name is Harander Sarkisian. I'm a practicing architect in Glendale. I've had an office in here, I think, for 30 years. And thank you for this meeting. I did not realize that when you pay $5,000, you get a private session. That's what we have today, I think. And by the way, our fee for the hearing was $5,000, just so you know. We are the architects and designer for the project. And in retrospect, I wish I had asked for a lot more things, which are given, by the way. I don't know what the outcome was, but Jay could maybe fill you in. But there was one on the previous week that had a list this long, and I do believe they probably were granted. Is that correct? I was not able to pull out the minutes of the. But anyway, the common thing recently has been a lot more, liberal on granting. I did not ask for one. As a matter of fact, the only one of the items was pointed out by Milka, and I did not agree, but then we decided it was best to put in, and that was that 10-foot wall issue. Every parcel that has been developed on the street has that condition already. I mean, it's not anything unique to the street. And I have done many buildings in Glendale, and every one of them has a podium, and the podium goes to the back of the building, whatever it may be. Well, it turned out that the zoning has been changed, and the 6.5 was a limit, so therefore we put that as a concession and was granted. But I want you to know that all the buildings have been developed on the street, which have this drop. All of them have this wall. So this is nothing unique on that particular block. The two concessions that I asked, and I should have asked for more, were one, to make the building simpler. I needed the space because we had 6 units. Even the units are small now, but I needed the volume to be able to produce the 6 units, which was my threshold of complying for this bonus unit issue. And also to make the building more economical to build, because I've built many of those offset buildings, and those are very difficult, very hard, very expensive, because it involves beams and, transferring of moments into walls. When you set back buildings, it becomes very difficult. So that was the purpose, the reason for that. Also, I did not ask, I asked for a relief from the common area, but I have personal experience, and I've sat on that chair, and I can tell you that on a 6-unit, the common area does not work. It doesn't work. It's a useless amount of space at the back, typically, and it's not private. It's more or less that last units. Nobody else uses it. And I've said this, and I've even gone to the council and said that this is an unreasonable not to. When we do a larger project, yes, then the common space begins to work. But 6 units doesn't work anyway. So I asked for that one. I should have asked for also, I think, a couple more. Especially, I should have asked some relief from code issues, which I did not, because I wanted to keep it as limited as possible and deal with only planning issues which are easier for the city to grant. Anyway, we were granted those 3, and we've designed the building. It's a tough building to design, very difficult building. It has some technical issues that I will not really go in detail in unless you think you have time and you want to hear. There are great issues with rating of the walls, projections, and distances and so forth. It's a complex building, although it looks simple. In terms of the building, I think we want to do what I would call a very fresh building. So it's going to be a pure white building with green as an accent color and a tile roof. The landscaping, which perhaps Commissioner Palmer will make comments. Those are in boxes at the back. I've done this, and we're doing this, all the big trees. By the way, the rendering has correct trees drawn. Those are not hypothetical trees pulled out of those are the trees that are specified. So we're putting what we need to comply with in the front in terms of large trees, because that's on Mother Earth. And the rest of them are going to be in planters, and I've done this before, and we've done it in other buildings, and this is no different. What else can I say? It is very difficult to do the building. I think that it is pushing the envelope. I know that. And I can't tell you how many hours we've spent on this project, just on small, fractions of an inch is as close this building is. I would be happy to answer any questions you may have. I think the drawings speak for themselves. I think it will be an interesting building. We have a huge garage on one side. Huge meaning very long. So that wall that we have shown, it's a rendering, but it's totally covered by the garage on the east side. And the west side, there's also a garage. On the south side, there's some planting and trees, and they are away. They are not on a podium. I think it's an older building on the south side, but they are away, and there's quite a bit of dense planting in there, so that would not be much of an issue. We plan on plastering all the walls, so we would not leave them as block. We would plaster them and probably put on, if they care, we would put on maybe a medium tone, not to be just white, but the building is going to be white. We articulated the building because I've done buildings and I know what needs to be done. It was articulated, and there are elements in front of it, which are balcony and the walkways, and we put in some accents, some arches in there. Building would be substantially possible to see the building going, frankly, west to east. That would be the only chance to really see the building. You can hardly see it going from east to west. Elevation, these buildings are small. This is a 49-foot lot. With the setbacks, you end up with a building which is no more than a residence. And by the time those trees grow up, you don't see the building. And I have done a number of them, and I can tell you that you cannot even see the front after a while. There is a very nice street tree that we're going to keep. That's already there, and the driveway does not interfere with it. What else can I say? We have a well above the walkway and some of the front units that is designed to contain the air conditioners. All the units are all sort of lost in the roof structure. I would be happy to answer any questions you may have, but that's about the extent of it.
I have a few questions.
Certainly, sure.
Material-wise, I
Yes.
may be up there, but I don't see it. The planters, how within the units structure over the parking structure, how tall are those planters?
The planters would be 2 foot clear,
So 2 foot.
2 foot of dirt
Okay, okay, and
to comply with our requirement.
the material for the walkways around the perimeter of the building?
I think that would be probably some sort of a tile. I haven't gotten there, but I think it would be a paver, a tile paver.
And what's the material of the driveway?
Driveway is concrete.
Okay. And the windows are
Windows.
sandwich grid? The grids are in between the
No,
windows?
they're not.
They're exterior
They're
grids.
exterior grids.
What kind of windows are they?
I think they would be aluminum. I have insisted because I hate vinyl with a passion. So they would be put a scale because I don't like vinyl. And I have to tell you, I have had projects approved here with aluminum windows. Then the contractor chose to put it vinyl. And this body, not you, but this body did not do anything else. I sometimes pray that they're going to go and catch them. Because it's hard for an architect that is paid by a client to go back and say, tear all the windows down because I told you to put aluminum. And I sometimes pray that they are going to do it, but they don't.
Most of the time, they do.
I echo you and I pray for it.
Yeah. As far as the color, do you know what color?
Pure white.
Pure white.
Pure white. And smooth concrete, smooth plaster, actually.
So steel trowel like plaster.
Yeah. Smooth plaster, pure white. I want that kind of a fresh, minty kind of a feeling on the building. The building is going to get lost. I don't know if you have the chance or know the block. There is a very large 3-story building to our left.
All right.
The first apartment house is a 3-story, double lot, big building there. Next to it is a very strange parcel divided into 2 pieces. We could not really understand. They were selling the back unit, but not the front. It's a very interesting, from a real estate point of view, very interesting package. We could not really understand how that could be divided into, but it is 2 parcels next door. There's a 2-story house in front and a long garage in the back. There are 2 units on the west side. Actually, it's not a single house. There are 2 units in there with a driveway that is next to us, adjacent to us. We are going to accommodate him by enlarging his chance to entry. It's very difficult on that street because it's very parked to come into a narrow driveway. So what we are going to do is offer him this wider, connecting with our driveways there. We're going to pave the 2 driveways so he can come in and swing over our portion of the square and get into this driveway. So his life is going to be made much easier after the building is developed.
2 questions for you, Mr. Sarkisian. What is the material around the window? What is that window
It's a
trim?
real cast, quote-unquote, stone. It's a cast molding, but not foam and not whatever the other material. It would be a true cast molding.
And the material board indicates a rough stucco, and you mentioned smooth stucco. And so a clarification there is necessary.
A machine.
Smooth, yes. Well, this is a very fine machine, but we're going to do a smooth one.
Okay.
That's the intent. It's not to have wild textures on the building at all. So it would be a smooth building.
Okay. And do we have details of the railings, especially the ones in the front?
I do believe so. It's a wrought iron railing, basically.
Okay. I don't see it in my package. Does Steph have?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I think it's drawn, and I think it's just a wrought iron. The only thing we did is we are going to paint all the railings on the building the green to match the window. But when it came to the perimeter, we thought maybe become too much. So we have toned it down to a little bit to a darker tone, just not to just shout all around the building, but all the ones that are on the building would be matching the windows.
There seems to be 3 different green colors on the material board at C, D, and G. Do you know, in general, which one?
This one is the rail on the perimeter.
Okay.
This is the G is the rail on the perimeter, and with it darker. This is our rail color, and this is an actual, Fleetwood sample for the green window.
I see. Oh, the windows are green, not
Yes,
white.
not white, green.
Oh, okay. I thought you said white.
No. The stucco is white.
These are going to be Fleetwood windows
Yes.
that you're proposing?
Yes.
I see.
Fleetwood aluminum window. In that green.
Okay. Do we have any more questions for the architect?
Do you have gutters and downspouts
Yes.
located on? Are they
Yes.
on the plan or
They are shown on the elevations.
they didn't?
So
see
Mr. Palmer, we have shown them on the elevations. We have located them, and we have shown them, I do believe. They're not on this
They're
drawing?
hard to see if they're there.
It's a thin line.
I have them, I believe, on the black and white version, so I'm going to pin this up for you.
Okay.
Commissioner Palmer, I think all the downspouts are shown, and the meters are all hidden on the side of the driveway. I've done that on a number of buildings in a recessed enclosure that I put doors on. I know the.
I see them on here now, we just couldn't.
We,
didn't have
we,
them on
we
our
showed them
drawing.
that they are there, and also just because the meters are the next issue, and those are all in a little recess as you go in the driveway on the right-hand side, and I put doors in front of them. We do not have any transformers. We have proper voltage on the street, so it will be essentially serviced from the street. Let me tell you about all the obstacles that one has in the city doing these units. Electrical is inside, obviously. The meters are inside, panels are inside. So it is. I am delivering to you a clean building. Trust me.
Where's your backflow preventer?
I'm sorry.
Your backflow preventer,
For the sprinkler,
fire.
it is in next to the gas meters. There, I put in a special place for the riser and the backflow and all that.
What material are the walls for the raised planters?
Steel.
Steel.
What was the question?
Yes.
What were the material for the raised
The
planters?
raised, the
building?
freestanding would be steel, like the Getty Museum. If you have a recollection there, it's Corten, 1-inch wall.
Okay. Does staff have a copy of the entitlements that were obtained previously?
Not on me. I can take a break and I could go get the file. I actually have a copy of it saved on my computer,
Okay.
so I can print a copy for you.
I would appreciate that.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have any other questions for the architect?
I just have one question.
Go ahead.
On the longitudinal section, you can see it up there, but there's, back of the building, it looks like there's a slab kind of
Yes.
dips down.
Yes.
Is that,
That's because I have to comply with the 10-foot height. And as I get back there, my wall, the combination of my planter wall and my garage wall has to be 10 feet. So I have broken the slab in order to achieve that.
I see a 10-foot 6 dimension.
Well, I think it's 10 foot. We've massaged it to 10 feet on the working drawings.
So what's on top of the slab there? And
What's-
is there sort of fill indicated
Is it a planter?
It's planter,
planter?
yes.
So some of the planter is actually built into the structure, and some is in these Corten pots, or?
Well, I've done, it is like this, and the planter, the dirt is even with this structure over there. So if I may fold this, essentially it's a slab like that.
Right.
And this is the planter in here at the back. But I am limited to having this wall, this containment wall, and the distance to grade to be 10 feet. I'm limited by that, by what I asked.
So,
And therefore, I've complied with it.
and so where's the steel planter?
Steel fill is only in the front part where I can be on top of the podium.
Oh, I see. That's not indicated on the section.
No, I think we are not differentiated, but there is a line that is the 10-foot line that I'm limited. So when the podium is very low, I can put things on top of it, but later on I cannot. So I broke the slab. And I even broke the slab in front in order words not to have a projection of concrete coming out of the building in the front yard.
He's talking about this 10-foot line.
So if I understand you, these steel planters are with the configuration of the building, the outline of the building, they're not just large pots? I'm looking, you have plantings around the perimeter tied right back to
Yes.
the walls.
It's in a,
just-
essentially, yeah.
Steel container, basically.
The reason is on smaller planters, when you do a concrete or a CMU, it really becomes very thick, so I've avoided that.
I don't have any more.
Okay. I assume there's no more questions for the architect? Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak on this project? Because I don't have any other speaker cards. Well, we can't have cross communications, so by all means come up, introduce yourself, and you could fill out a card afterwards and give it to staff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jose Postagian, and my question is, how many three-bedroom units there's in this development? Because I'm trying to figure out, how many?
Three.
We are 1.5 parking less than what we had to have.
No. Again, this is what's considered an affordable housing project, which takes advantage of what's called SB 1818. And that requirement allows them, if they have a certain level of affordability, which in this case, they do have at least one unit, which is dedicated, if you will, for medium income households, and the rest of them are at market rate. Because this project now falls into that certain percentage or level of affordability, they are allowed to take advantage of that provision, which is SB 1818, and only provide two parking spaces per unit. There are 6 units total. 6 times 2 would be 12. That would be the 12 parking spaces. And that is what they are provided. And that's what they're required.
But you said before that the 3 bedrooms need 2.5.
Right. If this project were considered a regular project that did not take advantage of any, in this case, affordable housing or density bonus, then yes, they would have to provide, depending on the number of bedrooms per unit, that specific code-required parking requirement, including guest parking. But this is a different project. It does not fall under that provision. That's sort of like the perk, if you will, of proposing this type of development.
Almost impossible to park in that area. You have to go around like 10 times if you have anybody coming to your house. It's impossible, day and night. So if we keep providing these people not to provide parking, one of these days it's going to be like New York. They're going to double park and go to sleep. That area is impossible to park. I don't know if anybody of you live around there.
I go by there every day. I know exactly what you mean. It's a
And if
that's a
we
neighborhood.
keep giving these, breaks to the people, one of these days they're going to require no garage at all.
Unfortunately, that's not our body's determination.
I understand.
But there's a city council election coming, and I would encourage you to have your voice heard.
Yeah, I will, because, it's like...
Unfortunately, the SB 1818, it's a state code, and which supersedes all city codes as well. And so it's more of a Sacramento issue, and that's something to just think about, where it was really put down on the cities from the capital, state capital.
And it's sort of an incentive to promote affordable housing projects.
I remember.
Yeah, but I thought affordable housing...
I remember a few years ago, and my memory is often interesting and warped, I will admit. I remember a few years ago, one of our council members, Laura Friedman, who sat on this board, made a comment concerning affordable housing and parking and cars and issues like that. I remember her comment when she said here was, people who need affordable housings don't have less cars, they just have not as good cars. Quote from our city council member Laura Friedman when she sat at the city on this commission. So I feel for that because I drive by that neighborhood every day. But as my colleague here said, it's a different board altogether. This is the design review board, and our issues are design. So, but interesting statement that I remember a council member made.
Maybe I was confused. I thought affordable should have been the whole building, not one unit. to get this break.
It is
And-
one unit, but the way it's designed, you fall into a certain bracket. One unit based on that bracket and percentage, you fall into that level of affordability. It would therefore determine how many units you're allowed total for the density bonus, and then what the level, or in this case, what category you fall under for level of affordability. So yes, it would apply to the
Who
entire
controls
project.
that? What stops the real estate agent to sell at the market value?
It's
controls- who's
regulated.
gonna be-
It's
excuse me?
regulated by law and will be regulated during the period.
I know, but there's a lot of laws that red lights and we just go through.
And we
I mean,
recognize your interests, and unfortunately, we can't
No,
answer all those questions.
that's okay. Well,
I believe it's deed restricted as well. I believe it's actually recorded against the property, the title of the property.
okay.
That's a city attorney question, but if my memory serves me correctly,
I have nothing against the
House.
applicant, but parking in Glendale is getting horrible.
well, we appreciate you coming out to voice
Thank
your
you.
opinion. As you could tell, everyone understands the factors, and I think staff did a good job explaining at least the law and the rules and why things are being done. Feel free to contact staff afterwards for more specific questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak on this project? Okay. We're required to allow the architect a rebuttal. If you choose to come up and speak on any items that you might have forgot about. If not, we could just close the public session.
I would answer the gentleman. I think the city in the last year, and I think you're very aware, has probably approved 5 large projects, most of them having total concessions from the parking ordinance. And a building that I had designed on the corner of Central and California just got a concession of less parking, tandem parking, that when I was designing the building, I was told by the previous planning director, don't even think about asking for parking reduction. And we designed a building that complied and had 2.5 stories of parking, and it was very expensive. It didn't get built. And they were just granted 84 units with a lot less parking and tandem parking, which is totally not accepted in our zoning ordinance. So the tendency is for all the cities to discourage parking, Mr. Postajian. That's where everybody is going. So we are hoping to depend on public transportation, bicycles, and we're trying to discourage. So we have to get off of our habits of having 4 cars, 3 cars. I think we are over-garaged in Glendale, frankly, because people are still hanging on to the cars and we are reducing. So I think the trend would be for less and less driving in cars and hopefully more public transportation. Other than that, I think we have designed a compliant project, except for those 3 items, frankly. And as I said, in retrospect, I wish I'd asked for more. My life would have been a little bit easier, but we've now been able to deliver it. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. And so with that, I'd like to close the public portion, and we'll start. Mr. Insua, do you want to start us off?
I'll be summarized briefly. I think the architecture's done well, and the items in which the architect said we're going to be incorporated in the project, I think, are good. I won't repeat them, but that's good, and we will summarize them at the end. So I think the architecture is very good, and I like some of the issues that how he was able to have balconies and open space and things. So it's good. The only one that I'm just bringing up, and Ms. Palmer will probably be able to help me, the landscaping has always been a challenge when you do a podium kind of project because you are limited. When I go to drawing number, and if we can just turn, then I'm just going to, so that I understand, especially for you, Ms. Palmer, if you can help me. If you look on sheet A4, the longitudinal section, which is section 2A4, we see at the left side of the page that we have in the podium a depression, which is about 2 feet deep for the planting area. That's the long one. If you look at the drawing above, section 3A4, it takes a section through the building right
Section
about
one.
here.
Section 1, you mean?
No, section 3A4.
Oh.
Yes,
Oh, this
so
one.
section
Yeah.
3A4 cuts it through here. And then when we turn to the traverse section here, when you see the section of it, you can see that the podium is level all the way across. Okay, so there is no depression at that cut point. So if you help me, if you go to sheet A1, or L1, which turn, I drew these sections on the landscaping plan. The long one, you can see it's cut through there, so this is the depressed area. And then this one, which is right about there, which has no depressed area.
Right.
So my question is, because I can't tell, is when we look at the proposed shrubs and those items on this back wall here, those appear to be, and the landscape plan doesn't have a section, but if we turn to the next sheet, L1, which is the irrigation plan. Wow, I need to get some rest. L2, you see that it appears that the irrigation plan is at the surface of that podium.
He said he had planters, steel planters, so they would be sitting on the top of the podium.
Very good. So
So the depressed portion in the rear.
Correct.
Is what is not it's a planter within the structure of the building.
correct.
The remaining ones are on top.
So my question then is, when you turn to sheet L2 and you look at the top irrigation plan and you look at the planting plan and you see the legend, does that work? Meaning, when you look at the trees and the shrubs that they're going to have here, it doesn't look for me that these are in planters. When I look at that
What
sheet
they will do
L1,
is run the irrigation underneath the roof of the parking structure and pop up through where those planters are.
okay. Now, when you look at sheet L1, do you see planters there? Because I don't.
That's why I had the question.
Very good.
So that's
so
why-
that's the, other than that, the architecture is great, but a project like this is one of the key components is to make sure that those landscaped areas really survive and.
Well, while we're talking about that, then I just want to comment that these planters, he states that they're required to have 2-foot high, that's the minimum, 2-foot high planters. In my opinion, the planters will not have dirt up to the top as shown in that one cross-section. So the planters should have dirt 6 inches below, which means 18 inches of dirt. And to plant trees and shrubs, they will grow, but you're going to have small trees, 6 feet tall, and the shrubs will grow. But you're talking a very minimum amount of soil. So I don't think that's an adequate amount.
So in summarizing, and
Probably.
I'll end my discussion.
Some of those planters may be able to be increased in height, but for tree, you shouldn't have anything under.
Very
4
good. So
feet.
for me, and I'll just end here because your
I was just
depth
chiming
of
in.
that is well beyond my understanding. Is the architecture's terrific. A project like this really needs to have good landscaping because it's really, as the architect was saying, things that they worked really hard. So other than that, I'm very much in favor of supporting this project. Okay.
Okay. Well, then, in order to just continue the flow of the discussion, we'll go to Ms. Palmer.
Okay.
And maybe we could get some resolution on those
I agree
questions.
with Mr. Nsua's comments and that I think the building's going to be a very nice building, but in order to make it complete, it needs good landscaping, and I would put a condition that those planters, especially where the trees are, be large enough to grow a good-sized tree. And I'm saying 4 feet in order to get the roots growing and keep the soil low. And that back planter is going to be just maybe ground cover because it's a very short, there's nothing you can do about making that taller. So I would say the 2 feet is, I would like to see more than 2 feet because of the height of the soil. It will grow some plant material, but in order to get it adequate size, I think the trees would have to be much larger planters. And then my other comment is, it looks like that, I don't know if it's a requirement in this type of a building, but we have to have a decorative drive, and this is concrete for about 40 feet. So I'm just wondering if there's a way we can put some pavers or a perimeter or something other than a concrete drive, because I think it would help enhance the surrounding of the building.
Yeah, and
Those
just
are
to
my comments.
clarify your comment about the planters, if they can't, I don't think they can go below podium level, are you saying that at the tree levels you would think a
Raise them up.
4-foot-high planter above walkway level? Okay.
And that's been done on many, I mean, we have these type of buildings on top of parking structures, and they're normally not a steel trough, it's normally a stuccoed planter, and it usually raises them up, so it's adequate to put a tree in.
Okay.
So whatever the material, but it just needs to be,
4 feet at all the trees.
yeah.
Mr. Herman?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little unclear in the plans, the extent of that depressed area in the back. I don't see it on the plan, so, it would have been nice, just in this discussion of where trees are, where planters are, where there's a slab depression, to understand a little more clearly. It's just not indicated on the plans. Is it an even swath across the back, from where the backmost part of the building? I just don't see a line on the plans that indicate where that ends. And if it is going to be then 4 feet of dirt, then that would suggest then you're going to have a 2-foot wall there so that you can get 4 feet in that location.
Those are trees.
These are trees.
Trees, yeah.
So it's just, and then along the side, you would have a 4 feet wall.
Well,
Just a comment really about kind of a little bit of insufficient information for us to.
And I've added a possible condition for you to consider that, let's see, the location of all planters, whether raised or depressed, will be clearly indicated on the plans, and then we'll also ask for section details so that we can see that there's a 4-foot height or 2-foot height and what the depressed section is.
That'd be good.
Okay.
Mr. Ellis?
I'm really conflicted on this. I think the architect, you've done a wonderful job. The plans are really outstanding. I mean, I really like how he's articulated it all. I'm stuck on the fact that 6 units and no parking for anybody other than, it just, in that particular neighborhood, nothing that we have control over, but I can't honestly support it as a member, as somebody living in that neighborhood. Parking is a problem, and having no parking for the guests or nothing off-street, I just really am falling on it. And I'm sorry, because it is a well done job, but I think the fact that the state and the applicant has, figured out a way to game it a little bit to build a unit with, what did we come up with, lacking 11 spaces just in a 6-unit apartment building. I mean, either the rules are wrong because they keep giving out the exceptions, as the architect mentioned, but at this point I can't support it because it's overdevelopment in that particular small lot.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. Before I provide my comments, I had a question for Mr. Collin. Looking at and Ms. Toledo as well, so I guess overall staff, looking at the site plan, as far as exiting is concerned and fire department access, since we are talking about planners on the east side, so we're talking about planners along here, and as indicated in the landscape plan, these planners are abutting the building and are going down. So we're going to have basically planters here and then planters along the back here. And the access is going to be, of course, where the common access to the building is. How does that work with fire department regulations? Will fire department require a clear path around that deck?
I don't believe that was one of their requirements, and we do have copies, if I may, and I could pull that out,
From here?
of departmental comments, but I do not believe that they even, because this was routed to the fire department as well for comments.
And the reason why I bring it up is I don't want the applicant to come back because of something that happens through plan check. And so while Ms. Toledo's looking that up, Mr. Collin, do you have any recollection of how fire department has dealt with that, or how building and safety has dealt with that in the past?
Not really.
Okay.
And it's more something that comes in line during the plan check process, but typically when these projects go through variances or other discretionary reviews prior to coming to design review board, the other departments are included, so that we can get their input, and if they see anything that's major, those conditions that they suggest to us are included as part of the approval.
Got it.
In terms of their specific code requirements, they highlighted fire sprinklers, ladder access to rescue windows, and by the way, the applicant does have a copy of this because this was provided to him prior to the hearing. And additional comments, they mentioned adequate separation of required exits, required clearance along exit paths, and maintain adequate clearance from unprotected openings.
Yeah. The key is the required clearance from exit paths and ladder access to the upper floor bedrooms. In other words, they need to come up on the side, put up their ladder to get to the second floor. And when there's raised planters, that's something that I think you're going to have to work through, because it's something that is, okay, it's something that's popped up and stuff that I've done, and I'm bringing it up. Yeah. No, we can't have cross communication, as you know, anyways. But I was more specifically honing in on that question. But I think we've come up with as much answers as we can at this point, this evening, and we'll just kind of let the architect and staff work through that. But overall, as far as my comments are concerned, I appreciate and I could tell the amount of work that's gone in with trying to kind of meet all the requirements and the setback requirements and making the building work. It's you could tell it's a compact site, and as such, makes things a little more difficult for the architect. And I think the architect's done a fine job. We've discussed some of the features of the building, which I think are all high quality. We're going to have smooth plaster, Fleetwood windows, cast window trim, real tiles on the roof, ornate metalwork. And so overall, I think the building has been designed well. The trick is, of course, going to be working in with that landscaping and making it work, which I think the architect will be able to do during the plan check process. I would just ask for some details from the architect on the entry gate and the railings and the ornamental railings. We have a very simple building. There isn't much going on, and I think that's an important part of it. The elevations, I think the design that they show is fine. I think it blends, and I would just ask for some clarifications there just to make sure what's been indicated here ends up being built by the builder. And so I think that is a comment. But overall, I support the project. I absolutely understand some of the issues that were raised regarding parking, and that's certainly not within the jurisdiction of this board to really opine on. And so can we actually ask staff to go over the conditions that we have thus far?
No. Sorry.
One,
if you want.
Well, I'd like to just kind of keep the flow of the hearing going. Let's hear the conditions, and then I will absolutely give you opportunity to speak. Thank you.
The new conditions that the board has brought up are for the applicant to provide details of the ironwork to ensure that it's consistent with what you can sort of see in the renderings. To clearly indicate the location of all planters, whether raised or recessed, on the plans. Provide clear section details of the different types of planters, and process. I guess this would be a third condition, that all planter boxes that contain trees will be at least 4 feet, or would that be 4.5 feet, or 4 feet high? And then a condition to add some level of decorative detailing to the concrete driveway. The staff recommendation about railings, I believe railings are required. Is that true, Milka?
Potentially.
Okay.
I had a brief conversation with the plan checker, and right now there's a good possibility that, yes, it will be required.
Okay, so we'll leave that condition. If they can eliminate the railing for any reason, it would be better not to have a railing in the front setback. But if they need it, we'll make sure it's consistent with the other railings.
Okay.
One more. We had talked about, the applicant stated that the decking would be a tile, and I don't think that says anything in the plans.
So we'll
Just clarification on that.
make sure that we'll have, we'll confirm the tile pavers.
Mr. Platt, correct me if I'm wrong, with respect to the 4-foot planters, because some will vary, I think we should say as measured from the inside, because some of them have the depressed, so if you measure the depressed from the inside, the outside would be about 2 feet, and some of them are going to be on podium, and they're going to be 4 feet. So as measured
4
from
feet
the
of interior height.
interior, because there are going to be some that are depressed, some that are not.
Well,
So, for example,
no, 4 feet from the outside to the top would be sufficient. So their steel planters only going to be like this thick at the bottom.
how about the one in the back that has that?
There's no steel there. That's recessed
just
into
a
the concrete
recessed in.
podium.
Yes, but that depression is only 2 feet.
Right,
do
and
it
that would have to be 4 feet, make it work for 4 feet.
as measured from the inside. So the outside
Oh,
would
I
be
see what
2
you're-
feet. Right. So if we just say as measured from the inside, it gives them the ability to, on that section, 2 feet down, 2 feet above, total 4 feet. But on the other ones, it'll be a total
Well,
4 feet.
I don't know that it has to be the 2 feet above. As long as you've got 4 feet, 3.5 feet of dirt.
They wouldn't be able to depress it an additional 2 feet, though,
Right.
in theory. I
Right.
mean,
So if you
Okay.
just say 4 feet as measured from the inside of the planter, it gives you the ability
Okay,
if
I
you're
understand what you're
depressed
saying.
or
Okay.
above.
Good point.
Okay, and then I just had a couple of things that the architect had said, and I think we should, because you can see that you're very passionate about doing a good project, and I commend you on that, because architects often get their project diluted as the project goes on. But he indicated that the perimeter retaining walls or the block walls would be plastered to match smooth the structure as the structure itself. I think you indicated that. And then on the structure itself, smooth troweled plaster for the walls.
Okay.
And then the last one, he had indicated that the window surrounds were going to be a cast stone window trims and/or door trims, if you didn't say that already.
Yeah, well, those are both shown on the drawings and the specs, or?
Could be. I don't.
I found it on there.
They said cast?
Yeah,
Okay.
there's one.
Okay.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
does.
Part of
because
the
I didn't have a
discussion all
drawings.
along.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Only in this one, that window jam, it does say cast mold and stone mold.
And the only one I would add, you hit a couple of the ones I was going to mention, Mr. Insua, is the architect mentioned that the windows are going to be aluminum, exterior grid, Fleetwood windows, because we don't have a cut sheet. So Fleetwood makes a wonderful window, and it's going to be fine. And so as long as we're at least clear on that, we won't need a cut sheet to move forward. Okay. Mr. Sarkeesian, would you like an opportunity to bring up something that you wanted to bring up? I'll open the public.
I was going to only talk about the planters. I think you are making the 4 foot a difficult task for me. It really is going to be difficult. So if you tie it to 3 locations, then I will live and I move the trees and I would put lesser stuff. I think I can go up to 3 feet, but I think you're beginning to make it just about impossible, because I have to then slope the garage internally, and we're handicapped issues and ramps, and it's going to be, I can push it to 3 feet, and I would plead for that. And I'm very sorry that Brian cannot support it, because this is the law, and I think it's handed down. And I think that, in my view, this is a very good solution, because it puts one unit in the right neighborhood, which is moderate income, rather than building a totally moderate income or low income kind of a housing that has a label. I think this is a very intellectually correct solution for this, and I would plead for your support, because I have complied with the law.
Oh,
the law is there for us to do, and it's trying to encourage this kind of. So it means that one follows the law and comes in here and gets a negative vote. That is unfair to the project only because of the parking. because that's what the law says, essentially. Other than that, I have no.
I have a question for you. Besides everybody's is privy to their own opinion on a matter, why is it difficult to go with a 4-foot planter? In other words, I don't think they're...
Yeah, it is. It is very difficult to go
Please
because
hear
of
me
the
out.
10-foot height that I have with the walls. I could have raised it.
I think you're
I chose-
misunderstanding what's
Yeah.
being requested. That's why I'm trying to clear things up for you. No one's talking about raising the height of the wall. The height of the wall is a structural thing that stays. Planters, in essence, could be somewhat mobile, so you can move them around. They're not part of the structure. They're not cast in there, especially when you're talking about a metal planter. And so, as Mr. Palmer is pointing out, a 4-foot planter to give the trees that you've specified, or Mr. Tyson has specified, the opportunity to grow. Now, as Mr. Insua has further tried to help you out in saying if it's a 2-foot depression and you have a 4-foot measurement of the steel planter measured from the inside, you're only popping up 2 feet. Now, if you were not to have your metal planter in the depression area and in other places, does it make a difference to you if they're 3 feet or 4
Yes,
feet?
it does.
And why is it?
Only because of this profile that I have. I have a 10-foot. I have a land, and I have a 10-foot ceiling for the height of the combination of the walls of the planter plus my garage.
Mm-hmm.
So there needs a struggle. The higher you raise this, the further I have to reduce these planters because this line is cutting into the possibility of potential of the planters, unfortunately. It was my mistake. I should have asked for more.
I don't
Again,
think we're communicating.
I don't think you're understanding what we're saying.
Are you stating that the steel planters are in line with the exterior walls?
Yes.
And we're saying steel planters are planters that are separate from the walls from the building.
If that's how it's seen, but I don't believe that that's what they're going to look at it. If that's the way it is, then I don't have a problem because I don't
That's
have
what we're interpreting this, so
yeah.
whatever way you can work it
Yeah,
to
but
make
I
it.
have, if I may, I can show you on the drawing what happens.
Please,
is that
come on up.
The line is there.
There is a pointer someplace, which is usually by Mr. Herman. Oh, there you go. You found it.
I'm very familiar with it.
This is the entries, and this is
The landscape drawing is
No,
there.
the elevation
Yes.
is what I want.
for the driveway.
What I
Wait a
have
minute.
is.
No, it's not.
I have
No,
a
no, no. This
garage,
is the driveway side.
Yes.
And I have a
So this-
parallel line
so
with
this
it,
is the
which is 10 feet up.
Is it? North is
And
this one.
that's my
street's to the
feet.
north.
So this is the west
My
elevation.
combination of planter wall
This is the west
plus wall
elevation.
is essentially always below that. So as we are raising the planters, they keep
me when I
going
go
back that way.
Yeah.
And it complicates
Because the
the
driveway-
slab
Because this is
constantly.
the east and this.
So what the slab is that Mr. Herman was asking, the slab break now is occurring right behind here. This is a slab break now. In other words, right on this wall of the elevator wall is my slab break. From here on here, I have a depression, and I'm going to push it down to get as much planter as I want. Believe me, I want the planters.
But
From
your
here
section
on,
is not showing a depression on the sides.
That's because the section's taken through the
yeah,
element.
but you know, I mean,
taken
that's
this
where it
side
is.
of
I mean, we're doing working drawings.
The rear continues.
So from here on,
Can't see it,
things
but
are on the
he's got
surface, essentially.
So just to make sure we're all on the same page, these planters
section
Are all-
here, this entire
They're
area,
all on metal there, not there.
this whole thing is depressed. 2 feet?
From where the pointer is,
Okay,
yes.
everything south of here,
Yes.
the entire slab is depressed.
Is
Okay.
depressed, and all the planters are even with the finished floor. In other words, you walk, and the planter is
And
the top
those
of the
in
planter.
front?
The front are all on planters. Not this, of course.
But
That's on dirt.
they are parallel with,
Herein lies his
Right up here.
how's that, it doesn't show on the elevation.
So he is saying that the planters.
When you look at,
But you actually from here, yeah.
Yes,
that's
west
the wall. This is
elevation.
walkway. So
Where are
the
those
planters
planters?
Here,
That's the
here,
planter in there.
here, here,
They're not shown.
here.
Yeah, that's the planter. So to speak.
Here's the elevator.
I mean, we've
Yeah,
shown the
here's the
planter. There's
but
the
it's a
planter.
different
Oh, you're
material?
roughly,
I mean,
you're
we're
right,
not
right
looking
into
at
there,
this
right there.
white stucco with
No,
railings.
well,
There.
we were
That's all
looking
canal.
at
That's all.
a box sitting on top of the wall.
Down.
And
Which
since I'm
if it's
doing it thin
down-
to get as much planting as possible, that would be, now,
Then
maybe
this portion-
that can become my rail and I'm
This
done with.
portion is actually
It's
maybe
possible.
2 feet.
Painted? steel, or?
It's called 10.
2 feet to satisfy.
So it would,
And
it
the
would have
inside
that-
is 4 feet.
Almost.
All of a sudden, on the back here, he's at 12.
So what we're looking at is not in
There are
elevation.
discrepancies, yes. Let me ask another question in regard to all this, try to help somehow. Which trees, Ms. Palmer, in the landscape plan do you think require the 4-foot
All
planters?
the trees.
And so we're talking
I put
about
trees
the
in
big
here
circles.
And in there, yeah. And
The
and do
ones in
that.
the front,
Yes.
though, are on natural
On
grade
natural
angle,
grade.
so it's
All
not
of
an
it.
issue.
No problem.
And everything,
The big circles. are
these
trees.
guys over here are going to be 4-footers, right?
I can do that. That's possible.
And that's
possible. I
sitting
can-
at the
yeah.
podium and above.
So
4
I
foot.
think if you allow me
And,
just to do those, I can do that. I can
That,
do
he
this.
said,
Realize the whole back
let me try to
Pressed.
make sure, because your drawings are not,
Well, okay.
are not matching what you're saying, and so everyone's confused. So we've already figured
6
out
inches below the top.
that these are on grade, and then these could be on 4-foot planters, and that
I
will
don't
work.
have a problem.
What Mr. Sarkeesian is pointing out is everything south of this line over here, which has a depressed planter along the edge. If we provide a 4-foot steel planter, which would be measured from the inside, which would pop up 2 feet, this portion right here, he's afraid that this wall, instead of it being 10'6", would be 12'6".
I understand, and maybe you don't put trees.
And that's what I'm
If you
trying
do
to
it that
get
way,
to.
that's fine.
I'm telling you.
And I'm
I
going to
don't wanna
slap.
No, it's
I
not
don't
up to
wanna tell you where
her.
to
No,
put
no,
the
no, but
trees.
I'm going to slap the landscape architect's hand. But basically, Chair Simonian, this is not a planter. This is
This drawing is actually incorrect.
traditional
If we're looking at
That's what
that.
wasn't
block
clear.
wall,
This
and I can
actually-
push that a little bit more. I am
See, going in this direction, so 3.
done it in a
goes-
way that it has
this
2 foot of
actually-
dirt, and I can increase that a little bit because I have to slope
as this
and
one.
get headroom.
It-
underneath.
it-
As you have it now, you only have 18.
No, look, we're doing working drawings.
It's close enough for
I'm
everybody.
just pointing out as
Oh,
it
yeah.
shows.
So right there.
So if you give me, let's say,
What's occurring.
somewhere, if you,
Same
3
as
feet
what's
from
occurring
these,
there.
and whatever I get in here.
That's not the issue. If
2
she
feet
believes
there.
4 foot
And
is
Ms. Palmer is saying
what she
don't
believes
put
is
trees
correct,
there,
that's what it
but
is
it's
now.
not gonna grow
Why-
anyway.
Why do you need to have trees in that section?
I don't.
That's my
I
point.
think that's the easiest
So the
way
way
to solve your,
Commissioner Power did is fine, is tied to the tree, and then I will move the trees.
it's up to
My
the architect.
biggest problem, frankly, is in here, and I'm even working with that. That's the harder one. From there on, I don't have that
Well,
much
you are
problem.
he's also required to have a certain amount.
25%.
We
I don't
have-
know if that, are you right at the
Right,
25%?
at that one.
So I was going to say, break
About a foot and a half.
west side
Well,
up, but east side.
That was my error.
And it's
I
not
should have
up,
asked
and
for
I
that.
think we're kind of, I'd like to put a stop to what's happening here at the point, because I think we've all expressed ourselves. Thank you for your time, Mr. Sarkeesian. Let's close the public session again. If I could try to recap some of the conversation that took place, I think the conditions, we've nailed them. It seems as though we have a good understanding of where that's going. And so far as the planners are concerned, Ms. Palmer made a judgment based on her professional experience that any mature trees, in order for them to mature, are going to need 4-foot planters, which Mr. Insua has already clarified should be measured from the inside. It's up to the architect and the landscape architect and staff to work with one another and to come up with a landscape plan that will not increase the height of the walls above what has already been entitled, and the steel planters might not even be perceived as part of the wall, in which case you could perhaps go above it and not even infringe or on that height limit. And I think that's a determination that could be made by staff and Ms. Howard Malice and others. And as far as a revised landscape plan should be provided, along with some detailed sections that clearly outline where the depressions are, that clearly outline where the planters are, and that clearly outline which shrubbery is going in those areas. And I think at that point, staff could work with the architect in trying to come up with solutions that are workable. Anybody else would like to add anything on the conditions or the project in general? Okay. Well, then let's entertain a motion and see how we could move forward and do what we have to do.
Just for clarification, can we read the
Conditions one more time?
Yes.
All of them?
Well, at least the last couple.
Okay, well, I think I've combined a few ideas in a new condition that says that the applicant will submit a landscape plan after working with staff, indicating that at no point will the height of any of the perimeter walls be raised physically or apparently. That will also clearly outline the locations of recessed and raised planters, and will only allow for trees in locations where at least a 4-foot minimum interior depth is provided in either a planter or at natural grade. And then the others, we're going to get details of the ironwork to make sure they're consistent with the drawings. We are going to add decorative detailing to the concrete driveway. We're going to specify that tile pavers will be used at all walkways. And we will also ensure there's a specification per the architect's statement that the windows will be Fleetwood, manufactured by Fleetwood Company with simulated divided lights, as shown on the elevations.
And I would just add in that revised landscape drawing section that the building sections and site plan are revised so they all working together, depicting the exact boundaries of the depressed areas and the planters, etc. So what the architects worked hard to design will get built.
Okay, we'll develop new landscape plans, building sections, and elevations that consistently show blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Could someone entertain a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the project with the conditions as stated by staff.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call. Board Member Insua?
Yes.
Board Member Herman?
Yes.
Board Member Palmer?
Yes.
Board Member Ellis?
No.
Chairperson Simonian?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, let's see. We have the approval of the minutes, and I don't have any other cards from anybody else in the audience.
Not your good job.
Do we have any changes? Is everyone happy with the minutes from
I didn't notice any problem.
January 10th?
Yeah, I'll move to accept them as presented.
I'll second that.
And roll call, Mr. Ellis,
Yes.
Mr. Insua, Mr. Herman,
Yes.
Ms. Palmer,
Yes.
Chairman Simonian.
Yes.
Very much. And no other items. Do we have a motion for
I move to
adjournment?
adjourn.
I'll second that.
Right.